Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, right at the end of May, when we can still cling on to the last shreds of spring, but with summer to come, is, I think, the best moment of the year. The jewel garden is taking on its summer clothes, the intensity of the colour from the allium purple sensation and the mauvey blue of the iris sibirica, against the electric yellowy green of the hops and the sambucus and the euphorbia and the other splashes of colour coming through. All that is signalling that summer is coming. Now, of course, what it means is that the spring flowers are largely done. And I will be moving the tulips on and replacing them with flowers for later on in the year. Whilst I'm nursing an injured knee and undertaking light duties at home, Carol is out and about, paying a return visit to our inexperienced gardeners, Dan and Dom, and helping them to create a delicious and productive vegetable plot.
Before you know where you are, you'll be out here picking stuff all the time and eating it in your beautiful cottage garden. What could be nicer?
Carrie Thomas has the National Collection of Aquilegias, and we visit her garden in Swansea to celebrate this glorious flower.
There's no end to the variations. I think for the rest of my life, I will still be enamoured of them because there's always something new to chase after.
And you don't need a garden to make a dramatic floral statement.
When we started the first set of baskets on the ground level, people started noticing it, and we went from there to the chimney tops.
And I shall be reviewing my herb garden and adding in some more favourites. Throughout April, this pot was flowering with 3 tulips, ballerina, caro and burgundy, but they've all done now. And what they now need to do is to slowly die back so all the goodness can go into the bulb, hopefully for next year's flower. And also we're tying up an expensive and nice pot, so I want to take these out and replace them. So, I can lift the whole thing out. Now, they may just pull out. I don't think they will. I'm going to have to leave them out. And this is a tricky part of the process. But if you try and work them out the pot without damaging any of the top growth, it's really important that this is allowed to die back naturally. And if it gets a good baking in the sun, if we have weather like we do today, that's the best way to ensure good tulips for next year. There they go. And you can see there's a lot of root on that. And we're going to pop those in there. And that's a good bulb. And you can see the little bulbils either side. Now, those little ones will not produce any flowers next year, but will get bigger over a period of 2, 3 or 4 years. So these go in the pot, and I've got a plan for those later on. Now, this lovely pot is now free and not tied up till next spring, so we empty it completely out into there and basically start again. And what I'm going to plant in here are dahlias. This is Arabian Night. You want a nice, big, strong plant and a big display. The soil I'm using for dahlias is very different to the soil I was using for tulips. Tulips love really good drainage, and they don't need much, if any, nutrition. It's all in the bulb. So that had a lot of grit in it. Dahlias, on the other hand, like a much richer soil. This is our homemade potting compost, and it's 30% sieved garden compost, so it's rich. It doesn't matter what you're growing. It is important, if you're changing from a spring to a summer display in a container, to change the soil. Because even if it's the same kind of plant, the compost will be exhausted. This is a plant that I've grown from cuttings, and I keep my dahlias for years and years. I'm going to pop that in just below the surface level, and then we just pack around it. Now, I'm using dahlias, but there are lots of other plants that you could, and I have used for the same effect. Lilies do really well in pots. Really, it's a question of maximising the value and use of a lovely terracotta pot. So whilst it's being occupied by one display, there's another coming along in a much cheaper, less glamorous pot. And that will now stay and occupy this space until November. And of course, November is when we plant tulips. So the cycle just keeps going round and round. And you can use that with containers with a whole range of plants. It's a form of bedding, really. Now, we have a garden and the bedding is part of the display. But Jerry O'Brien in West London doesn't have a garden. But he does have a fantastic display composed entirely of bedding plants.
I've been now a landlord 30 years. And it's been a wonderful time. It really has been my life. I'm from a lovely village at home in Ireland, in County Clare, Gunallow. We're lucky, I suppose, we grew up in the countryside, you know. We had one field, and it was always a meadow. And that was just glorious. The bees, the butterflies, and all that. And I thought it'd be lovely to have a little bit of this here in London. I'm going to get some plants, some hanging baskets, just to give it a little bit of colour. I wish I had a real garden. I wish I had some grass under my feet that I could feel. But I think this makes up for it in a big way. Yeah. Love begonias, you know, and there's about 3 different types there. We have the pink, the yellow, the orange. And then we have the Sophinia, Petunia, we have the Lobelia, and the fuchsia, which I love fuchsia as well. You see them together and it just gives you a lift. It really does. Every time I look up and look at them, it just does something to you, yeah. When we started the first set of baskets on the ground level, people started noticing, and I thought, isn't that lovely? Then you'd look up a little bit further, and you said, well, I think there's room for another lot. And we went from there to the chimney tops. We can't go any further than that. I'm always looking to see if there's any spot, anything we could put an extra pot or a window box or a hanging basket, and I really don't think there's any space left. There really isn't. We have the conservatory downstairs, and that used to be just an old garage. And I've got about 200 hanging plants in there. Mostly ivies and ferns hanging, because they survive better. We don't have a garden as such outdoor, so we brought the garden indoors, you know. We have to water twice at night time, about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and again at 5 in the morning before the sun comes up and gets at them. And then we have to go on the chimney tops with our hose. When you water, you smell, you get, it's a fantastic feeling, it really is. It's just glorious. Well, we've won some great awards over the years. We've won the Brighter Kensington Chelsea scheme, 11 years running. We won London in Bloom. London in Bloom, 3 years. It's terrific, isn't it, to get recognition for what we do.
I have to say that I love the exuberance of Jerry's display. It's a kind of celebration of life, and the more of it, the merrier. Now, you can see I've dug a trench, opened out the clump of tulips, and spread them out along. And it's really important to give them a sunny spot with good drainage. Tulips come from sun-soaked mountainous hillsides in Turkey and that whole sort of Central Asia area. And whilst they can be covered with snow in winter, which then melts and gives them water, they are baked by really hot sun in summer. So maximum sunshine, maximum drainage. And if you've got any doubt about how much drainage to put in more. And then next March and April, they'll start to come up and flower and give you cut flowers for the house. You're not wasting anything. Neither the terracotta pot, the bulbs, or even spare bits of ground. Now, these tulips and all the other cut flowers that I will add in throughout the summer are growing cheek by jowl with vegetables and shrubs and trees and climbers, and that's all part of the cottage garden mix, and I think that gives it real charm. But this week, on our visit to Dan and Dominique, which she's been doing all year and will continue right through to the end of the growing season, Carol is focusing just on vegetables.
Dan and Dom have spent the past few months working hard to create their dream family garden. And at the centre of their plan was an area to relax. Last time I was here, we created cottage-style borders around the lawn. Since then, Dan and Dom have been out and about, gathering together their favourite veg plants and seeds, and getting the frames of their raised beds ready. And today, we're going to fill them. Today, it's all about veg. It's looking phenomenal. It really is.
Good. Obviously, the chickens were here before. We've left the gravel. Is that going to be a problem with anything that we're growing?
No, not at all. I mean, the gravel's going to provide drainage. I'm glad that you followed my suggestion, made these paths nice and wide, because access is all important. So last year, when you had your raised beds, you fill them full of compost.
It seemed like the easiest way to do it.
Which is what a lot of people do, but of course, this year,
Yes, we have taken your advice. We've gone and got what looks like an enormous amount of topsoil.
the whole advantage of topsoil as opposed to that bought-in compost is that it's alive. So all those microorganisms, all those worms will get to work and really make your soil fertile. And it'll go on then year after year after year. Okay. But then you've also got some muck.
Yeah, so we've got a few bags of muck left over from when we were doing the borders.
Before we decide what to fill with what are you going to grow? Because different crops need different conditions.
Yeah. Leeks, beetroot.
Beetroot, yeah, love beetroot. Carrots we've always done before.
All those rooty things, the carrots and the beetroot, parsnips perhaps, all those kind of things, love good free-draining soil, but they don't want high fertility. They don't want muck, fresh muck, anywhere near them, because it makes the roots fork. So what else? The usual stalwarts, to my mind, are courgettes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. 2 plants will give you ample yields. They need high fertility, so lots of muck underneath them. Okay. For salads and onions, these 2 beds are going to need some muck in underneath and then loads of that really good topsoil. So all that remains is to start filling these beds up. So after you.
Okay.
Great stuff.
Each raised bed will have at least 70% topsoil. This will keep its structure as it contains clay and rock. Compost is made purely from organic material, and recycling theirs from last year will lighten the mix. For some of the hungrier crops, we're adding a good helping of manure. Oh, lovely stuff! And making sure it's all mixed together before planting. So this is your really fertile bed. Brilliant, loads of muck underneath and this lovely substantial topsoil. The first courgette. And just bung it down and firm it in out round where the edge of the pot was. Yeah. And what you can do is you can make a little furrow like that so that when you water, all the water is going to go down into the roots.
Okay.
Now, this is your climbing bean.
Right.
So it's coming right at the back here, and I'm going to put 4 in, I think. The whole idea is verticality. We'll make use of this space as well. So I'm going to plant these quite deep because these are fairly big beans. Right. Whereas your lovely little ones can go along there.
Yeah.
Not too deep because it's only a little seed. Bob's your uncle. On to roots.
Right.
My vegetables, I'm gonna chop down my vegetables. I love you most of all. My favorite vegetable.
So, perfect position for carrots. Full sun, lovely free draining soil and no muck. I like sowing my carrots sort of 2 little rows at a time. When you come to thinning out, you want to do it with as little disturbance as possible because carrots smell and carrot fly can zoom in. And once you get them in your carrots, that's it, you've had it. In a couple of weeks, you'll see them germinate, and about that time, you can start thinking about sowing another couple of rows.
So a couple of these double rows of carrots, they are going to be enough for us for the year?
Depends how much you love carrots.
Depends how many we eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't it? But I love salads. Can we do those?
Yeah, yeah.
I brought you these few plants of rocket that I grow in modules, just to start you off, and perhaps put them just on one of these edges. And with salads, it's hugely important to keep on sowing because you don't want great big old plants. You want nice fresh stuff all the time. Planting distances aren't crucial. You can mix some flowers in here, put in marigolds, anything that's nice and open and will attract pollinators for things that need it. Before you know where you are, the whole garden will be flowering, fruiting. You'll be out here picking stuff all the time and eating it in your beautiful cottage garden. What could be nicer?
Great, yeah.
Dan and Dom's veg plot promises to be a productive and beautiful space. Something that'll give the entire family enjoyment and nourishment throughout the year. Sowing and harvesting regularly will ensure it plays an important role in their family garden.
I realise that if you haven't done it much before, vegetable growing can seem daunting. But don't be put off, because now is a really good time to start growing veg, even if you've never done it before. Sow some seed and you'll have a delicious harvest before very long. Even if you're not growing vegetables at all, here are some jobs that you can be getting on with this weekend. Now that Chelsea Flower Show has finished for another year, it's time for the Chelsea Chop. This means cutting back clumps of summer-flowering herbaceous perennials by between 1/3 and 1/2, which will stagger and spread their flowering season, as well as giving you extra texture and varying heights. Cordon tomatoes should be pruned regularly now by pinching out the side shoots that grow very vigorously on the angle between the main stem and the leaves. By doing this, you're concentrating the plant's energy into the trusses of fruit, which are slowly beginning to develop. At this time of year, a lot of us have a mass of seedlings ready to go in the garden, but the garden isn't necessarily ready to receive them. But don't let them get pot-bound. Take them out of the plug or the pot and check to see the roots are not too constricted and yet nicely formed. Pot them on into a larger container. It doesn't have to be too big, just enough room to let them grow on for another few weeks. Then, when the garden's ready, you can plant them out where you want. There's certainly no room to add many more plants at the moment here in the Jewel Garden. But spaces will appear and the plants will be ready as and when they do. But for the moment, who would want to replace these lovely Aquilegias? This really is a beautiful, intense purple. And then they do crossbreed terribly easily. So a pink one, which shouldn't really be here in the Jewel Garden at all, it's popped up, but I haven't got the heart to remove it. And that's what Aquilegias do. They pop up all over the garden here. And wherever possible, we leave them and let them do their thing. And they're very easy. They grow in any soil and almost any condition. But Carrie Thomas in Swansea is much more disciplined about her Aquilegias because she has a passion for them and breeds dozens of beautiful new varieties.
I'm Carrie Thomas, and I've got the national collections of Aquilegias in the UK. I've been collecting since I started gardening, but particularly the last 20 years, I've really gone in for all of the different types of cultivars, and that culminated in having enough to have the national collection. I just love the daintiness of the flower, the way that it's put together, very different and very extraordinary. Aquilegias probably comes from Aquila, in Latin for eagle, and it's said that it's probably to do with the spurs and the hooks on them, which look rather like the talons of an eagle. And of course, the common names, Grandis bonnets, is easy enough to understand, and our native columbine comes from dove. It actually looks like a circle of 5 doves in the flower. Aquilegias are found in just about all of the Northern Hemisphere, from Japan to North America. And the good news about Aquilegias is that they couldn't care less where they grow. They're very easy in just about any type of soil, as long as there's not sort of standing water in the winter. And perhaps best of all, they're slug-proof. The bumblebees here are pretty cheeky. They can't be bothered in going in the business end if there's a shortcut. This one has bitten a hole through the spur, and look at that, they're getting the nectar directly from the end of the spur. For somebody that likes breeding, Aquilegias are a gift, because not only will just about all of the cultivars mix and match quite happily between them, but you can actually get the species to interbreed, and that's quite unusual. Well, I've got several ultimate goals when I'm hybridizing. In this case, I want to get more yellow into these double forms. Sometimes I may go for the height of the plant, whether that's high or low. I might go for scent. I might go for the different coloured leaves that we can have. So first of all, I have to choose the right mother plant. So if I use this one, definitely no pollen on, so I can just start to tease away the petals. We don't need those. That's for attracting the bees. And we're going to be doing the bees' jobs for them. Then I need to take off all of the stamens, the male part of the flower. And then when I've done that, what I'm left with is just the female part. But I'm ready now to choose the father plant. And when I've got that pollen, I need to transfer it onto the female parts of this plant. And this is where I'm just going to dabble the ends of the stigmas, the female part, into the pollen. That's beautiful. And when the seed is set, then I need to go around and collect it. This is the result of seed from, about 30 different parent plants. And from this, I select the ones that I'm going to keep and the ones that I want to breed from and the ones that perhaps I've got enough of and I'm willing to let go. I rather like this one. I've got a nice, strong yellow, plenty of petals, and I rather like all of these long spurs coming out of the back. And, yep, I reckon this one's going to go back into my collection, so I'll definitely be keeping this one. There's no end to the variations. I think for the rest of my life, I will still be enamoured of them because there'll always be something new to chase after. And I do warn that if you get drawn into Aquilegias, you may never stop, and I don't think I ever will either.
Now, in the jewel garden, the allium flowers are looking fantastic, and that's what we grow them for. But here in the herb garden, another allium is elephant garlic. We grow it because it's got these huge bulbs, which are very subtle and delicious. But what's noticeable is they are now developing flower heads. And this is a bad idea. you want to remove any flower heads on garlic because the plant will take the energy away from the bulb and put it into the seed. So we can salvage the bulbs by cutting off the flower heads before they develop too much. In an ideal world, you won't harvest garlic until the leaves really start to turn yellow and die back. Very similar to the tulips. The herb garden here, which was only made last year and is based around 4 raised beds, has changed our growing of herbs at Longmeadow dramatically because we've always had trouble with Mediterranean herbs. It's very wet, heavy, cold soil. And in winter, thyme, sage, rosemary, marjoram has struggled and often died. And now with these raised beds, which have got a huge amount of grit and stone and terracotta to improve the drainage in them, they're thriving. And the thyme bed is fantastic. We've never had such good thyme. In this bed, I did have parsley, and now I'm going to plant out 2 of my favourite herbs. The first is French tarragon. You can get French or Russian tarragon, but French tarragon is the one to grow if you're cooking with it. The taste is infinitely better, and it's wonderful with chicken or with fish, but it's not hardy. So I dig it up and bring it into the greenhouse over winter, and once it starts to grow back and it's been hardened off, it can grow out into the bed. And simply plant it in good, well-drained soil in a sunny position. It's sitting in cold, wet soil, which does most damage to Mediterranean herbs. And we'll just plant that in the ground. And that will grow nice and big and give us plenty of material to cook with. This is lemon verbena, and it has such a lemony fragrance. Just a few little leaves with boiling water poured on it, and you have a refreshing, delicious tea. So we plant that next to the tarragon, and that will be bought in winter as well. Of course, if you live in the south and it's warm and it's sheltered, you may well be able to grow these plants over winter. But if, like me, you have heavy, wet, poorly drained soil, and it can get pretty cold here, then it's not worth the risk. Take it in and protect it over winter, and then plant it out once the risk of frost has passed. And also, because it's been growing inside, you've got really nice, strong growth, and it makes fabulous tea. That's it for this week. Bye-bye.